Hi, and welcome to the show. We're back with Speakers on Edge. We're doing 15 Minutes of Fame, where we have voices of vision sharing messages that matter. Today's message that matters, it's coming from Amy. Amy, who are you?
Thank you. My name is Amy Pease, and I am the founder of Passion from Pain, and it is a podcast and a platform for individuals who are overcoming or are in the middle of a toxic, narcissistic, abusive relationship, how to overcome that, how to overcome ourselves after leaving, and how to find purpose and passion from the pain, from the experiences from life that we have suffered. And that's what we do at Passion from Pain. We try to teach you how to rewire that brain and how to live purposely despite the nonsense that you've been through. Coming from my own personal journey and personal experience, yeah.
I was going to say, why? Why should we listen to your podcast? And why have you chosen this highly emotional topic? Because it's a huge topic.
It is a huge topic, and I chose this topic because of my own personal experience growing up in a family that was narcissistic and mentally abusive, and having it creep into just about every facet of my life, my early adulthood, and really just becoming a part of who I was with the depression and the anxiety. I let it become part of my identity, and I let it take over my life, and I let it keep me from becoming the person that I knew I could be. And that was a lot of the brainwashing that I had experienced, a lot of the constant, you're never going to be able to do anything without us, you're always going to need us in your life kind of talk. And so through that, and after leaving that situation and leaving those people behind, I started to really focus on myself. I had myself to deal with, the constant tape playing in my head of, you're never going to do anything. Why are you even trying? And so I had to get over that. I wanted a life for me. I was a single mother. I had a son to take care of. And so I had to become something not just for me, but for him. And it became my passion essentially to, I guess, fix myself. And so I did. I studied hard. I studied psychology. I studied dark psychology, manipulation, narcissistic abuse, trauma, and how to recover from it all, depression, anxiety, and just how to bring myself out of it. And one of the things I learned is that, while there is no end to the healing journey, no matter how hard I try, I will continue to evolve, but I'm never going to be at the end. And that was a huge moment that kind of went off for me and kind of went off like a light bulb. And so then I learned the tactics to, okay, if I'm never going to heal, essentially, I need to know how to pull myself out when the depression and anxiety comes back into my life. And that's what I did. And that's what I've learned how to do. And that's what I teach people how to do, how to identify when these moments are coming and how to pull yourself out of these kind of situations. And from that, we've created the podcast where we talk about these kind of experiences and bring on all kinds of experts.
I have more questions for you because you've said a couple of really good points. One, what's dark psychology? And number two, well, in a moment, I'll let you answer that in a moment. I just want to give you my second question as well. You said that the healing never ends. I want to have some hope that I'm going to get some relief from those narcissistic experiences, from that negative. Can you give me any sort of hope, or how? So yeah, I'll shut up now and let you answer those, but there's no hope.
No, there's plenty of hope. There's plenty of hope, and there's plenty of good to be had afterwards, no doubt. The idea that the healing doesn't end is kind of just fighting back against the stigma that there is going to be an end point at some point. And a lot of people going on these journeys tend to self-sabotage their journeys because they think I'm never going to get to an end point. And the reality is, there never is an end point. You are going to continue to evolve. You're going to evolve past the narcissism. You're going to evolve past a lot of the depression, but there is going to be times that it does come back to you. Something is going to trigger you. Something is going to set you off. Life is going to happen. It happens to all of us. And when life does happen to those of us who've experienced trauma, it hits a little bit harder. The depression comes a little faster. And, and it just is, in a sense, is, we're going to evolve. We're not going to be completely healed. There is no end to this journey. You're going to continue to be on this journey essentially for the rest of your life. And as soon as you embrace that, it becomes a lot easier. You have a map, just a long journey, discovering who you are, and just unpacking everything that you've been through. And so, yeah, there is going to it's going to be a continuous journey. And the sooner that you come to grips with that, the easier it is going to be to accept a lot of the information that you're going to be taking in. Now, dark psychology is the study of the darker side of psychology, the Machiavellian type of psychology, the manipulation, the narcissism, the psychopaths, and we look at that side of psychology when we are healing, because we need to have an understanding of the frame of mind of the people who are abusing us. And having that understanding gives us the tools so that we can essentially fight this in the future. We can notice it in other people to protect ourselves. We can notice the patterns. We can notice the traits in other individuals. And we can notice, when we are falling into some of those traps again, the red flags. And we can bring some kind of understanding, not necessarily acceptance of what they did, but an understanding of, what had happened and who this person was. And it kind of gives us a little bit of comfort. And, it wasn't our fault. We didn't do anything wrong necessarily in those situations. Um, so, yeah.
You just said a sentence that is, I've been doing coaching for a long time, and
Yeah.
I've seen this particular statement all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What did I do wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Can
Yep.
you expand on that? Why do people feel that and blame themselves for being on the end of narcissistic or bullying or that sort of behavior?
Well, a lot of times we feel like, there was something that we could have done, something that we could have changed. There was something inherently wrong with us in our personality and the way that we handled things, and the way that we didn't handle things, what was said, what wasn't said. And we put a lot of that blame on ourselves. Could be for a host of different reasons. It could have come from, childhood trauma, insecurities, just over analyzing, overthinking a situation to the point that we've just decided it was our fault. And it's not. It's never, our fault. It's just the, lack of education, lack of confidence within ourselves that leads us to believe that. And that's one of the things that we've got to unpack, and one of the things we've got to coach out of ourselves and realize it's not ever our fault. It's always the fault of the abuser.
So, do you have a technique that somebody who's watching today, who is in those difficult situations and they're feeling like it's their fault?
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yeah,
there
and
something simple that they could do, that you would suggest that they do, to just start them on this healing journey?
yeah, one of the things that I love to do with a lot of my clients is going through pattern recognition through our, life journey, and going through the different experiences that we've had. And we look at these situations that we've been in, whether they were abusive or just uncomfortable or whatever. And we look at these situations and we see, okay, what did we have control of in those situations, and what did we not have control of in those situations? What we had control of, that's what we can do stuff about, right? What we didn't have control of is, of course, how other people behave, how other people act, how other people react. We have zero control over anybody else's emotions or reactions. And so, looking at these past events, are we looking at it through the lens of, did I, could I control what had happened, or could I not control what had happened? And again, if it was on the other person and their actions, it was nothing that we could control, therefore it's no fault of our own. If it is something that we could control, a situation or a reaction that we could have controlled, then we have something to look at. And through that, that's where a lot of growth can come from. We can look at, the patterns within us. How did we react? Those are the things that we have control over, and the things that we can study and build on from there. Excuse me. And it's a really helpful exercise, not only in being able to distinguish, accountability versus, self blame, or, putting the blame on other people, but it also helps us also see the patterns that we keep tending to fall into in our lives as well, which is very helpful in moving forward. Constantly when this scenario seems to happen, I seem to notice that, this is kind of what leads up to this particular situation continuing to happen in my life. This is really helpful for those of us who, seem to continually fall for the same kind of relationships. Those who continually say, I seem to fall for the same kind of person. They seem to be attracted to me. This particular kind of person always seems to be attracted to me. And doing an exercise like this, going through our lives and looking at the patterns, is really what's going to help us notice the things that we keep doing in our lives, those patterns we keep repeating, that we really need to stop.
So, do you have courses or training or coaching that helps people besides your podcast?
Absolutely. At passionfrompain.com, I do have a course called Finding Strength After Toxicity. And I do have one on one coaching as well. And you can book time in hour-long sessions with me, and we can unpack and do the pattern recognition together. And we can, unpack the situation, and I can give you a roadmap going forward, or we can dive deep. It just depends on how much hands on um, learning you want to do, and how much help you really want to have. That's just really up to you. And it's, at the end of the day, it is your journey. And I can help you as much or as little as you want.
And so, do you have a success story that you can share? Not with personal details, of course, but do you have an example of somebody that you've helped that sort
Oh
of
goodness.
stands out in your history?
Absolutely, absolutely. I've got a couple of them. I've got one gal, oh goodness, who was 73 years old, lived with the aftermath of a narcissistic parent her whole life. And finally, at 73, she decided that she had had enough, and she attended one of my workshops and really found a lot of breakthrough and a lot of aha moments. But she's just one, and she ended up, at 73, turning, her whole mindset around, and started living for herself, and started helping a lot of the older people that were in her circle with a lot of the same stuff, because that generation just really, kind of had a lot of that going on. So now she helps them with a lot of the information that I've given her. And I've got another gal who is now a coach herself. And she's a relationship coach now, after going through and one narcissistic abusive relationship after another. And now she finally recognizes the patterns that were within her, that she kept just putting out there, and kept attracting the same kind of person. She finally was able to attract a nice, decent a person in her life, and is actually going to be getting married, and is a coach and helping other women, younger women, just get through the same kind of experiences, and helping them through the dating world now that she has got all of that into perspective, and she's in a place that she can help people. So absolutely, absolutely, there's, they're finding their passion from their pain.
Yeah. So, I got one last question. If there was one piece of advice you could give somebody who is sitting here watching you right now, what would be the most important piece of advice?
Just don't give up on yourself. Know that there is help out there. and that, you know, even if it doesn't come from me, there are others out there that can help you. You know, the abuse isn't the end of the road. It's, you know, leaving the abuse is just the beginning. It's the beginning of a very long and hard journey, no doubt. And it's not going to be an easy journey. But that's why, you know, folks like myself are out there, why my podcast exists, because, you know, we've been through it. I've been through the trenches. I felt it, and I know what that feels like. I've experienced it personally. And, you know, if I'd had this kind of help back then, you know, who knows where I'd be right now. You know, I'd probably be a little further along, but, you know, here I am. I'm very happy with where I'm at and what I've built, and very proud of what I've been able to build despite everything that I've been through.
Well, we're very happy to have you on the show here today. You have definitely been a voice of vision with a message that matters. So how can people find you?
I am available on the website, passionfrompain.com. You can also find Passion from Pain on Facebook, and me, Amy Pease, on Facebook and TikTok. And the podcast is available on YouTube and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio, and a few others. But you can find the Passion from Pain podcast on those platforms as well. And I bring on many experts, psychologists, therapists, authors, other coaches who have very different perspectives, because I know that mine isn't the only perspective out there. And I know that others can probably, you know, connect with, you know, different people on other levels that maybe I just personally can't. So that's why I bring them on.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Amy. It has been an absolute honor having you here. That's it for today's episode. We'll see you next time on Speakers on Edge.